Module 4, CAD 136, Advanced AutoCAD for Interior Design. Today we're going to model this table and lamp, and we had previously modeled this couch in Module 3, and so we will take these items and then put them together. So the first part of the video, I'm going to model the table. You should have an architectural scale, because as we work on some of these drawings, the author has the instructions for dimensions that are not shown to measure them with an architectural scale. And I checked them against the scans. They're pretty good. I'll put some pictures in with the measurements that I was able to print out. Here's the instructions. And so project 14-2 from our Kilpatrick textbook, and they don't give you the dimension for the top of the table or the diameters. They really don't give you much of any of it. So I picked up one of the architectural scales and I measured these, and I created a drawing here in AutoCAD. And so the top diameter is about 2 feet. And so we'll make this, it looks kind of like a pub table with a diameter of 2 feet. And then I created viewports of my 3D model. And then I put the dimensions on within each of the viewports using viewport scaling. But we don't need to do that for this drawing. I just wanted to explain that for some of you AutoCAD users who are into customizing dimensions. I also made a drawing of the leg. So as we take a look at this, let's get started. We're going to go to D2L and download the architectural title block. And so here's our architectural templates from CAD 136. It says Arc Templates, and we can download this file right here and then open it, and we'll just OK this AEC object detection. And so here we are, and then we can start off by let's keep it relatively simple. As we look at how we would model this, what I would do is I would model it in separate pieces. I would model the tabletop as just a disc or a cylinder or a circle that I extrude, and then I would model this midpoint here, drawing half of it and then using a revolve function. And then I would model the leg one time and attach that at the 3 o'clock position and then revolve it. So let's take a look at how that would work out. Let's start by creating a disk for the top of the table. Here we are in AutoCAD, and what I'll do is I'll work on this on layer 0. Seems fine. Let's go and turn on our snap and grid. I have the toolbar on. Here's the hide menu bar, show menu bar, excuse me, menu bar. And then I like to put these toolbars on here for dimensioning, properties, and for layers. And so you can customize the interface with tools, toolbars, and then if you check any of these off, it's just shortcuts in customizing the interface to make it work properly for you. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and turn on a snap and a grid. Snap is on 1 inch, that should be fine. Grid spacing, and this is 1 foot, and so we could say 1 inch. And then we'll leave the grid at 1 foot. Polar and tracking enabled. object snap enabled, object tracking enabled, and we'll put 3D object snaps on with the default. I'm going to make the color for layer 0, let's say black, and then I'll draw a circle, and we'll just find some convenient location, and we'll make that a radius of 1 foot. And then we can zoom in on it, turn on our line weights, we'll give that a 50mm line weight. We'll grab an isometric view. The quickest way to model this is to press pull it, and we can switch over to the 3D interface, but then I'll lose these other interface tools, and so I'm just going to put on a toolbar for modeling, and I'll use some of these commands here rather than switch over my workspace. So we will press pull this, hover, acquire, we'll bring that up 1.25. Hit escape. Once you've done that, you can verify that with a conceptual. Looks good. Go back to modeling in wireframe. As we look at the other drawing, what we want to do is we want to model the midpoint here and then revolve it. And so if we switch over to my table model, we can see that the table height is about 3 feet, and then this area right here, and we can just throw a dimension on there, double click in there, and let's say from here to here. Two feet 7 inches. And you can space these apart if you want. I'm just going to leave it for right now. So we'll come back to our other drawing, and we'll make this this shape at the top 2 1/4. So when we create this area for the revolve, what we're going to do is we're going to create that at a height of 1 foot 9 inches, kind of this vase-like shape. This is about 2 1/4, 2 1/2. They don't have to be exact to my dimensions. In fact, mine is a little bit bigger than if you were to scale it off of the textbook, but it's workable. It's an interior design course. We're making furniture. We can be creative with it. And then if we look at the overall distance of this kind of cylindrical structure here, it's about 2 feet 7 inches. And so let's get started with that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a quick snip of it so I can keep it on my second monitor. There we go. Alrighty, so let's get back to work on this. We've modeled the top of the table. Now we're going to go back to a top view. Going to move slightly to the side, and we're going to create the geometry for the center cylinder. We're going to make that about 1 inch and 1/8. I'm going to have to dial down my snap, and I'll just dial it down by typing in the word snap, and then I might bring it down to 0.25. And I need to bring that snap down to 0.125. And that's one of the benefits of using CAD. You don't have to be perfect at math, but eventually. And this is because my dimension style, DDIM, needs to be within 1/8 of an inch. 1/16, that should be okay. And then we'll bring a center line down 2 feet 7 inches. And then we'll bring this out 2.5. And then we can kind of look into creating, I'll use O-snaps like nearest. So make sure nearest is enabled, and I'll show you when we get to that point of putting some of the cylindrical features on here. But essentially, if we were to come up from the bottom of the model here, we could start by modeling this height right here, which isn't on here, so I'll go from the top. We'll go down 1 foot 9 inches, and we'll put a circular feature here, and then we'll add these 3 decorative features. So that's roughly the geometry that I want to work with. I'll bring this to a tangent relation. It's a smoother transition. And then I'll trim this out. We want to put a dimension on just to keep our frame of reference. And so mine's a little bit bigger, a little bit taller than the other area, but as I'm creating this video, I'm finding that it's going to be, I'll use offset here to keep everything kind of standard for manufacturing purposes. If we offset this 1.125, we can kind of stay consistent with the dimensions that I have. Alright, it's starting to resemble our shape here. Alright, so I've created our geometry for this shape right here, and I'm going to revolve that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our revolve command, and before we revolve that, let's go to the 3D workspace, and if we want to look at a revolve command, what I would do is I would switch over to an isometric view, and then as we look at the revolve, we want this to be a solid model when we revolve it, so we'll need to have a boundary shape like a region or a closed polyline, because if we just go through and we revolve this feature right here about an axis, we'll get this net-like look to it, and what that is that it's a surface. And those are good, you know, back in the 80s, you know, but now that we have solid modeling, we want to use that technology. And to use that technology, we need closed boundary shapes. And so what we can do is we can region it. And then when you hover over it, you'll notice that it treats it as a solid. If you like to work in conceptual, you'll see that it kind of fills it in. And then we'll just go ahead and revolve that. So we can say revolve, select our object, hit enter, and then it wants two endpoints as our axis of revolution. And then, you know, as you revolve it, as you can see, I can dial that in from and so we'll revolve that a full 360, and now we have two of the components created. And then what we're going to do is we'll create one of the legs, and I would model this. I have a separate detail, and I'll include this in the D2L. And so let me grab that. And I'm going to make another quick screenshot for my second screen. And then we're going to go back to modeling this. And so we've got the tabletop, we've got the center, and now we're going to do the leg. And so we'll switch back over to a top view. And this is how I teach 3D. I'll model each of the different parts. You know, you can move them around once you have them, you know, orientated if you like to keep your workspace tidy. And then we'll go and we'll model the foot of the table, and we'll just kind of make a shape that's similar to this. So I'm going to add my properties toolbar, because to keep myself organized here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the color of the bounding features here so that I can keep my bearings for how to create this. And so I'm going to be working within an envelope within these red lines. And so as we create this shape here, we've got this element created and this element, and then we're going to kind of zigzag down, and that's 9.5 inches to this other red line. We'll use a spline tool. Enter, enter, and then we'll offset that so that we can keep these curves kind of consistent. And we're not going to be able to offset that because they're two different shapes, and so I can't offset this without having this feature here. So I'm just going to make another spline. And then I'll use a couple of lines to just bring that shape together. I might have a double line on there. Yeah. Alright, so that's the shape of our leg. And what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to have, again, a region type shape for that. And so we can go here to the region command. I'm going to use a blue window, which should just get the geometry for, and I'm not going to be able to use blue window. I'll use a green window here and select these black lines to turn this into a region. And there we go, we've been successful with that. And then we'll give this a thickness. We'll take a look at it from an isometric view. And we'll extrude this. I'd say a good inch. And then when we put this together, we'll put this together from the midpoint of the top here to a quadrant. So this is how to create the models. I'm going to end this video and create a second video for the assembly.